Welcome to Whatif tutorials. In this tutorial we'll be looking at the job quotes module at labour, work centres and operations and employees. First of all, we'll be looking at creating employees to be used in work centre operations and also in calculating work centre standard labour rates and overhead rates. We'll be looking at creating a work centre, and we'll be looking at standard labour operations, that is, as opposed to non-standard labour operations, where you apply labour operations to jobs, or whether you do in charge a labour operation. It may or may not be standard, so we'll be looking at standard labour operations. Okay, let's close this. We go first of all to master files and then labour and overhead, and then we'll have a look at employees. First of all, there are employee classes. You can simply create a new class, put in the details, put in some remarks if you wish, and there you have a new class. Next, we want to go back to master files, labour and overhead, employees, names. Here are the various employees that have been created, and each employee is created within a factory. If an employee can go from factory to factory, then you need to create him in more than one factory. First name, initials, full name, state, start date, payroll or other number, class, salary and effective date for the salary. So if we look at one of these, we can select a factory, enter the name and other details, date, payroll number, salary. Okay, so that is where we create our employees, and these will be used mainly in building direct labour rates and overhead rates, and this is the subject of another tutorial. We'll leave it that we've created them here. Next, I want to go into work centres. Here we have the work centres that already exist. We have them firstly by factory with a work centre code, description, a labour rate per hour and an efficiency applied to that to give a standard labour rate per hour. We also, where applicable, have a standard overhead rate per hour, total cost of the two. We also have a charge rate where we are doing labour, do and charge operations. The charge rate is that, the total cost is that, so that gives us a gross profit for that particular work centre of that, the percent sale of that. Okay, so what we'll do now is create a new work centre to show how it works. We select the factory, we put in a work centre code up to 10 digits, put in a description, put in a default manning for this work centre. Now that's saying that if no other manning is put in for an operation, this will be used. Then likewise a default labour efficiency. So we're saying that these people working in this operation on average can perform at 80% of the achievable standard. So this will then ramp up the cost of the labour. Okay, next thing the system needs to know for this work centre, a rate code. There must be at least one rate code for each work centre. So we'll create that as M123 rate, give it a description, and we'll give it a charge rate per hour. Now, we don't know, this is a charge rate per man hour. We don't know what the costs are per man hour as yet, but that would be the next step to actually calculate a labour rate per hour and if applicable, an overhead rate per hour. So we've just created a work centre, and all we've put in is the charge rate, and the labour and overhead rates will be the subject of another tutorial. So let's close that now. Next, I want to talk about labour operations. Standard operations. Now, standard operations are operations which can recur from job to job. If every job is totally different, then there's no point in having standard operations which can be reused. But in those cases, we use non-standard operations. The option is there. Okay, each standard operation is within a factory, within a work centre, and each operation must have a driver. Now, when we say a driver, we mean the cost driver. The driver is what drives the hours taken for this operation. So we're saying, let's for example say Windows is a driver. We have an operation code here, 112, description. This operation requires a manning of 3. The unit of the driver is each, so it's each window, and it takes 5 hours per window at 90% efficiency. So this is a standard operation which can be applied to jobs, to job tasks, I should say, building up the total cost of the job and along with materials, subcontract, etc. Or it can be used in do and charge, where you actually do this operation and charge for it. But this is the determination of the cost, because we are saying here that depending on the number of windows, then this operation will require 5 hours per unit. Okay, let's close that now. Okay, so we've covered employees, we've covered work centres, and let's go back in here. We've covered work centres, employees, and the standard labour operations. We'll be covering direct labour cost rates and overhead cost rates in another tutorial. And that brings this tutorial to a close.